This episode is sponsored by FX's American Horror Story, Delicate, starring a female-led ensemble cast, which marks the highly anticipated return of fan favorite Emma Roberts to the franchise. Delicate also will be introducing some fresh blood, featuring Kim Kardashian in a role that was specifically written with her in mind, along with Cara Delevingne, who will both be joining the AHS family for the first time. FX's American Horror Story, Delicate, Part 1, premieres September 20th on FX. Stream on Hulu.
Hey everybody, today's guest is Joe Jack Talcum, guitarist and vocalist for the Chester County, Pennsylvania punk rock band, the Dead Milkmen. Together we break down the writing, recording, and inspiration behind their most successful single, Punk Rock Girl, taken from the 1988 album, Beelzebubba. This song is a classic in so many ways. It found a place on radio and MTV at a time when everything was so polished and pop perfect. Punk Rock Girl is neither of those. It's a band capturing a moment in time, a sound that only they could have created. Producer Brian Beattie was an integral part of this process, with Joe agreeing he was basically the fifth member of the band. They had a sound that didn't need manipulation or studio trickery. It was real and raw and funny. Did I mention funny? Because this song is hilariously tongue-in-cheek and completely off the cuff. And speaking of off the cuff, Joe had never before played the accordion until this recording. A recording that again somehow made it onto the radio and MTV. Super cool. So for all this and a steaming hot cup of tea, stick around.
Hey, hey, have you heard? Krista makes a podcast. Hey, hey, have you heard? Krista makes a podcast. Hey, hey, have you heard? Krista makes a podcast. Hey, hey, have you heard? Krista makes a podcast.
Well, hello there, Joe. How's it going?
Oh, it's great.
And should I call you Joe or Joe Jack? What do you like?
Whatever you like. Most people call me Joe these days, but Joe Jack will make me feel like I'm back in the 80s.
Is that good or bad?
It's not bad, but it's okay.
Gotcha. Are you in Philadelphia right now?
Yeah, I'm right outside Philly.
Nice. Okay. I think you have the dubious honor of being the first guest that is recording outside. So we're getting the streets of outside of Philly noise in the background. I like it. It's authentic.
Yes.
Perfect.
You got people mowing their lawns already. 9 a.m. I can't believe it.
Exactly. So, a couple things here. This song, okay, it's so funny because I know how your band started. And for the listeners, Joe, the story reminds me a lot of myself. I remember getting my first 4-track recorder, and in 1979, you were doing these home recording projects that, you were playing for your friends. And you made up this imaginary band called the Dead Milkmen that ended up being not an imaginary band. And
right.
Your first performance happened in July 83. In 1985, Restless Records, a subsidiary of Enigma, released your debut LP, Big Lizard in My Backyard, featuring Bitchin' Camaro, which was kind of like a college radio hit at that time. And that's when I first heard the band.
Bitchin' Camaro, I ran over my neighbors. Bitchin' Camaro, now I'm in all the papers. My folks bought me a bitchin' Camaro.
And you're just kind of going along recording these records. And in 1988, you released Beelzebubba, your fourth album, which featured the song we're going to talk about today, Punk Rock Girl. And I noticed it was the 7th track out of 17. So I don't think anyone was thinking this was going to be a hit. But do you recall writing Punk Rock Girl?
Yeah, it was in 1986, right after we released our second album, Eat Your Paisley. I remember coming up with the idea for it, and I remember writing most of the song and then bringing it to Dave Blood, our bass player, Dave Schulteis, and playing it for him and asking him for lyrical help because I didn't have all of my verses, but the whole idea of the song was there, and he helped me along, pushed me across the finish line, more or less. gave me the Minnie Pearl line. That was one of them. Gave me the "Do you have a bow" line.
And I can't wait till we get to the Mojo Nixon line, which we'll get to. There's so much stuff in this song that's just absolutely ridiculous. And I gotta say, tip of the hat to you guys. You really paved the way. I mean, there was nothing else on radio or MTV. I mean, maybe They Might Be Giants, but there wasn't much in the 80s. You had Devo, but there wasn't a lot of bands doing what you guys were doing. And to all of a sudden get embraced with a track like this. I mean, this song's pretty loose. It's very garagey. It's punky. All the blemishes are there for all to see. It's not a perfect lined up recording, yet it was your first hit.
Oh, well, we considered Bitch and Camara our first hit.
Yeah, you know what?
I
mentioned that earlier. You're right. Okay, but this was your first mainstream.
This was our first video that was played on MTV in a format other than what they had, the 120 minutes. In other words, not on the alternative show.
Well, that's the other thing I wanted to ask you. I don't recall if 120 minutes was around as early as 88, but there was a thing called, do you remember Postmodern MTV?
I do, but I'll tell you 120 minutes was around.
It was? Okay.
Yeah, it was. Because that's where they first showed our video.
Okay.
And that's also where they first showed our Big Time Operator video, which is the one we have from the previous album.
Gather around me, everybody. Let me tell you who I am. Cause I'm a big time operator. And they call me High Sam.
That was from the Bucky Fellini record?
Yeah.
Okay. Very cool. Well, what was that like at the time? You're just, like I said, you're going along. You guys were out playing the punk rock circuit.
We were on tour when it all blew up, and we would hear from our manager, like on weekly phone, but like our road manager would hear from our manager and tell us what was going on. And he's like, "Oh, it's now in rotation on on MTV," and we're like, really?
Yeah, that had to be incredible. And remember, this is before smartphones, and you could just get on a computer and find out what was going on in the world. You guys are trapped. Are trapped in a van driving around, getting to payphones or the venue, calling your tour manager's calling the manager.
Yeah, that's exactly how that's the scene it was.
Right.
And we'd hear from our fans too, saying we saw this on MTV. And we could also see more people were coming to the shows as a result.
What a beautiful video, though. The innocence of you four. It's just, back then you guys were adults to me. You had a couple years on me. I was an MTV kid watching down in, suburban Florida, this band, the Dead Milkmen. But again, I'm just amazed at that time period, how this transpired. And can you set that up a little bit? How do you think it happened? Did someone from the label walk it into MTV, or was there a fan there? Do you recall?
Certainly the label had their publicists, and they had people pushing videos all the time. They required us to make a video, one per album, and it was always someone at the label had the final say on which song they're going to put their money into. It's a little bit surprised of their choice, but we're obliging. We make the video. In fact, we had control over who would direct it. You mentioned They Might Be Giants. We saw They Might Be Giants video for the put your hand inside the puppet, whatever. And we wanted to know who made that video, because that looked cool to us. And we found out it was a guy a director in New York named Adam Bernstein, and he agreed to make our video too. And that's how he came down to Philly and talked to us about ideas and found some cool locations.
And think of MTV in the 80s, how perfect it was. The makeup, the hair. And you can see you messing up the lip syncing in the video and saying stop. It was so real. You didn't really see that back then. The video really stuck out for those reasons.
Well, that was all planned, of course.
Yeah.
For the video. But we were doing our little spoof of MTV videos.
Do you remember who you were on the road with back around this record? And the reason I ask is you guys always kind of floated, to me, you're a garage rock, punk rock band, but you were never really in that pop punk world either.
At this time, we had not, as far as I can remember, gone on tour as a support act with anyone. Shortly after this, I guess our first big support act thing where we would be the opening act was for the Red Hot Chili Peppers, but this was prior to then.
Mm-hmm.
So we would play whatever show we can get. We played a lot of DIY shows in our early, for our first couple albums. We didn't even have a booking agent. Our manager and us together, we'd all book our own stuff, and then for our third album we had a booking agent. So by then we had a booking agent, and a lot of the places that weren't DIY that we played, we could still play our DIY shows. We just have to coordinate that with
you're right
agent. But he was getting us a lot of actual college shows where we were playing colleges, and many of those shows would be like free to the students, but the college student union was paying the bill or something like that. And some of them were ticketed shows, and we were also starting to get into playing small theaters and a lot of clubs. And when we played clubs, we would request double headers as often as possible, because a lot of states would only do the 21 and up, and we would do the all ages shows. That was we kind of had our idea back then that a lot of our bands wouldn't be able to get to see us at a bar show.
Well, it's amazing revisiting this song, Joe, because I've heard it a ton of times, but going back and dissecting it with fresh ears as I do here, it's amazing to me the influences of what came after. My producer, before we started rolling, he was saying, man, I thought this was like a 90s song, because I think you guys might have been on Beavis and Butthead or something. And this song and the video does seem like a 90s song, because think about the 90s, what happened. Once they once Nirvana hit, it was like all these quirky type bands, and then bands that I was starting to get into, the punk rock bands like Screeching Weasel, NoFX, Mr. T Experience. I mean, your melodies and your inflection is all over those bands.
Oh, speaking of NoFX, we had happened to have played a show with NoFX the year before this album came out, when we were touring for the Bucky Fellini album.
Oh, wow.
We played with them in El Paso, Texas on a pig farm, and that was fun. That was my first hearing of that band.
Okay. Well, Joe, I want to jump into the track now. It's 2 minutes and 40 seconds of just, to me, perfection. There's such a charm to this song. The intro is a 20-bar intro with the whole band. Drums, bass, and jangly guitar panned slight left. Was that guitar doubled?
Probably.
Okay, it sounds like it. Okay, and in parts, but it's interestingly tight within itself, even with the imperfections of the the playing.
Yeah, certain songs I would go with doubling guitar. It's usually a producer decision. Brian Beatty was the producer of the album this was on. This is the second album with him. We had already worked with him on the Bucky Fellini album and liked the results.
Was he like a friend at this point? Did you trust him? Did you feel like you could let him into the process?
Yeah, because we could trust him even back for the previous album, because we got to know him from Glass Eye's first tour of the United States. That's the band that he was the bass player for. They stopped in Philly, and that's when we first met them and stayed in communication from then on. In fact, they helped us get our first show in Austin, Texas, on our first tour, which was one of the best shows we played on that tour in '85.
Do you recall if this was done to 2-inch tape or was it 8-track?
It was 2-inch tape.
2-inch tape. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And
our very first album was 8-track, so that would be the 1-inch.
Yeah.
And then our second album was 16-track. I'm not sure the inches.
Yeah. And
our third album was our first 24-track, and that was the 2-inch tape. And so it's likewise our fourth album. And we recorded it in Austin, Texas.
And it sounds like this was cut live off the floor, barring maybe maybe the guitar solo and the accordion and the vocal?
That's the way we like to, that's Brian's approach, was to do it that way. He would separate as much as possible the amps of the guitars and the bass to facilitate mixing, or in case you needed to do any punch-ins. Mm-hmm. But that we always did it live. We wouldn't do too many takes of anything, but we would do maybe 3 or 4 and then come in before we'd even listen to anything. We would also almost always do 3 at least takes of everything, and then come and listen to, and then pick the one, vote on the one we all wanted to keep, and then do the overdubs on that one.
You know, I'm sure they're out there. I haven't looked on YouTube or Spotify. I'm sure there's covers of this song, but nobody sounds like the Dead Milkmen. It's like just trying to do a cover of this song, me sitting in a bar somewhere with an acoustic guitar, it's just not going to translate. There's so much of your personality on this recording. And yeah, it's loose. Yes, there's mistakes. Yes, there's bad notes. When was a performance good enough to leave on tape for you guys?
A lot of it was the feel, and a lot of it was how the drum performance was, because that you could often fix everything. If the drum performance was wrong, then the whole song would fall apart. So it's really bass and drums were what we were looking at. I could always overdub something, or we'd leave a lot of bad guitar stuff, but if you put stuff on, people won't notice it, and it gives it a good feel. And a lot of times when you try to fix stuff, it just wrecks it.
Well, yeah,
for us.
Especially with something like this, it's just there's so much. I'll use the word again. There's so much character here. It's steeped in character. Verse 1.
One Saturday, I took a walk to Zipperhead. I met a girl there and she almost knocked me dead.
One Saturday, I took a walk to Zipperhead. I met a girl there and she almost knocked me dead. So a couple things here. Zipperhead, is that down in the South Street area of Philly?
Yes.
It is. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And this was really for our Philly fans. And to be honest, it was a song that was written for the duo that Dave and I had as a side project, where we only played in Philly, and I played electric guitar, he played electric bass, and we had no percussion, and we both sang. And we only played bars and small places.
So was the Zipperhead area considered like, my band just played TLA recently. Is it like that?
It's practically across, it would have been practically across the street from TLA.
Okay.
It doesn't exist anymore, but they were the punk clothing shop.
Okay, gotcha. And meant to ask you earlier, you had mentioned DIY and playing wherever. Did you ever play the First Unitarian Church in Philly?
Yes, but funnily enough, not in our first incarnation, but in our second incarnation.
Okay, when you came back.
2009 or 2008.
What a cool collective that is. That's the yeah. Great shows there. Well, so what's going on here in verse 1? Set it up for us.
Well, I wanted to write a punk rock love song, and a lot of songs start out with, woke up, did this, took a walk, whatever. But I figured it would be like a love or lust at first sight, but love at first sight. And the idea was that it was a kind of straight normal or normie falling in love with not only the punk rock girl, but the punk rock lifestyle entirely. And that's why there's the anarchy. Well, the first verse is just the meeting and being smitten.
And real quick, what was the punk rock scene like? For the listeners, you got to remember, this is before the punk rock explosion in the 90s.
It was more like a Walk on the Wild Side kind of story than back then. Now it's seeped into the culture so much. But then it was a little more, you're taking a little more risk when you would dress punk. I mean, you had your part-time punks like that
right,
or weekend punks, but
yeah. But if you were living it,
you got your hair dyed green permanently, then you're in it for it, something like that, or got a mohawk.
I love that. I'll tell you something else. Again, I can't tell you how many times I've heard this song. It's a lot, okay, and I've gotten really good, and I've amazed people. I've been in airports before, and I'll just look at somebody and go, "Hey, you're from Philly?" And they go, "Yeah, how'd you know?" And I could just tell from dialects, because I've been touring for 30 years.
Yeah. Our accents, yeah.
The word almost here is so Philly. Like when you say almost in this first verse, it made me chuckle, and there's other words. I'm not going to point them all out, but it's just so great that I never really noticed that until, again, getting the microscope on here and really looking at it. It just made me laugh. Really, really cool. Chorus 1 comes in at the 24-second mark. We get gang backing vocals here on Punk Rock Girl on each of the first 2 lines. They're very loose and they're largely panned off to the right.
Punk rock girl, please look at me. What do you see? Let's travel around the world, just you and me. Punk rock girl.
Punk Rock Girl, please look at me. Punk Rock Girl, what do you see? Let's travel round the world, just you and me. Punk Rock Girl.
Yeah, that's the main character wanting to be noticed and regarded, and he's fantasizing.
Was there a punk rock girl, a real person?
Not in my life at the time. This is a completely made up story, but
okay.
Like I said, I wanted it. And also the punk rock girl is a stand-in for punk rock itself. So. Oh, nice. Okay, so little metaphor going on there, and because I noticed there was in my warped brain.
I noticed there was a lady in a green mohawk in the video, so I didn't know if you knew her. Or...
Yeah. We got to know her. She was cast. She was an actress.
Oh, wow. Okay. Out of chorus 1, we get right into verse 2.
I tapped her on the shoulder and said, do you have a bell? She looked at me and smiled and said she did not know.
Tapped her on the shoulder and said, do you have a bow? She looked at me and smiled and said she did not know.
Yeah.
Sounds like she was hanging out in South Street for a little too long.
Yeah, this is Dave Blood's work in the lyrics department.
Okay.
But yeah, I was like stuck on this. I knew that I needed to ask her if she had a girlfriend, but those words are too awkward for lyrics. And he said, "What about Beau?" And I never had heard that term before. And he said, "Well, that just means a boyfriend, or do you have a boyfriend?" And I like the fact that it's ambiguous. Like she looks at me and smiles and says, "Oh, I don't know, maybe I do now," sort of thing, or that's the hopeful thing. But
do you recall recording a demo for this? Did you guys demo back then?
Oh yeah, we demoed.
Okay.
We're like constant recorders because we're not sight readers or music writers per se, like trained musically. We weren't musically trained people to do that, but whenever we got an idea, I'd put it on tape. And
do you recall the demo changing to the actual recording that we all know?
It was very faithful, right down to the introduction. In fact, frustratingly for me, the guitar solo, the whatever I would play, the and that was an overdub, of course. Brian would want something closer to what I played on the demo, which made me not want to play, not make demos with such. But we would basically play live. I mean, not basically. This is the demos we sent to Brian ahead of time before we went out to Austin, were merely us in our rehearsal space playing the song, and we'd update them from week to week until, as we progressed, and give him the latest one.
Well, because you had mentioned that Dave wrote some lyrics here, so were there lyric holes in the demo, or had he written them by the demo point?
Well, he had written them by the time the Milkmen got together, because, like I said, we played the song out in public as the Ornamental Wigwam. That was our duo project.
Okay.
In 86, 87, we recorded this at the end of, I guess, at the beginning. We recorded this album in 88. So, honestly, it was somebody in the audience at one of our shows who suggested we do it as a Milkman, and so we asked the other two guys if they wanted to do it when we were looking for material to add to the Beelzebub.
You talked about the guitar solo, and your producer, he said he wanted it to feel more like the demo, and that's kind of dangerous with a band like yours, because you have been doing home recording for so long, and I think, at least I believe this, when I'm doing demos, I'm not thinking like I am when I'm recording it for real per se in a studio. You just lay down those initial ideas, and sometimes there's just a charm there that you can't escape, and that sounds like what maybe he was hearing.
You get demo-itis, we used to call it.
Right, yeah.
Where you're afraid to go to do something completely different. And then I would like to do something completely different and have the producer tell me not to.
Did you guys, was this a pretty loose thing in the studio where there are lots of laughs? Were you having fun, or do you recall it ever getting tense?
I don't recall tension. We recorded most of the song on a Friday, and there was something left over to, like, the accordion wasn't working, and because I was trying to play it, and Brian, we didn't record on weekends. We only did Monday through Friday. So we had the weekend off in Texas. And Brian lent me his accordion and said, if you can practice this over the weekend and get it good enough, you can play it. And then on Monday, I thought I had it good enough, but it still wasn't good enough for him. So he played the accordion part on it. And I had my idea. He just made it. Yeah. He played it. He could play any. He was like the guys who could play any instrument.
Here's a producer handing you an instrument you never played, and hey, kid, go brush up on this on the weekend. We're going to record on Monday when you come back. Who does
and
that?
I couldn't get it. Well, he did it.
Yeah, that is awesome.
Probably because I wanted to do it.
Life is shit. Life is shit. The world is shit. The world is shit.
Hey, don't go anywhere. We got lots more with Joe Jack Talcum after a few words from our sponsors.
To all the guys out there listening, we all know first impressions matter. And if you're not taking care of your skin, people are going to notice. They'll either think you're way older than you are, or that you just don't care about your appearance. Well, show them you do and make a great first impression with Caldera Lab. I try to make skincare an important part of my everyday routine, just like brushing my teeth and flossing and styling my hair. It's just as easy and sometimes even quicker with Caldera Lab. Caldera Lab creates high-performance men's skincare products, and the regimen leads off their product lineup, a twice-a-day routine to transform your skin. Skincare has been the Wild West for men for years. That's why they've made the solution simple. It's 3 products. The Clean Slate, which is a face wash to start and end your day. The Base Layer, which is a daily moisturizer to hydrate your skin. And the Good, which is a go-to multifunctional serum that helps your skin look tighter and smoother. They also have the Icon Eye Serum, which addresses the 3 most common skin concerns around the eye: fine lines, dark circles, and puffiness. 1 minute in the morning and at night is all it takes to reduce your skin wrinkles, fine lines, and signs of aging. Clinical trials have found that 94% of men's skin showed an overall younger looking appearance after using Caldera Lab for a few weeks. So now is the time to see what it can do for you. We have an exclusive offer for Chris DeMakes a Podcast listeners, and it's the best offer available anywhere. Use the code DeMakes at calderalab.com and get 20% off right now. Get 20% off with code DeMakes at calderalab.com and make unforgettable first impressions that lead to the confidence you deserve. That's 20% off at calderalab.com with code DeMakes. You'll be glad you did. Fall is here, and we're all busy. Finding the time to prepare wholesome meals can be tough. But good news. Factor, America's #1 ready-to-eat meal kit, can help you fuel up fast with chef-prepared, dietitian-approved, ready-to-eat meals delivered straight to your door. You'll save time, eat well, and stay on track with your healthy lifestyle. With Factor, you can skip the extra trip to the grocery store, as well as the chopping, prepping, and cleaning up. You'll get the flavor and the nutritional quality you need with fresh meals that are ready in just 2 minutes. Factor allows you to choose from over 34 weekly flavor-packed, fresh, never-frozen meals. And you can even level up with Gourmet Plus options, which are prepared to perfection by chefs and ready to eat in record time. Treat yourself to upscale meals with premium ingredients like asparagus, leeks, truffle butter, and broccolini. And if you're like me and you'd like to support your wellness goals and feel your absolute best, try the Protein Plus meals with 30 grams of protein or more per serving. You can even round out your meal and replenish your snack supply with an assortment of 45 plus add-ons, including breakfast items like apple cinnamon pancakes and the potato, bacon, and egg breakfast skillet. This September, get Factor and enjoy eating well without the hassle. Simply choose your meal and enjoy fresh, flavor-packed meals delivered to your door. Ready in just 2 minutes? No prep, no mess. Head to factormeals.com/DeMakes50 and use the code DeMakes50 to get 50% off. That's code DeMakes50 at factormeals.com/DeMakes50 to get 50% off.
And in the sky I saw Richard Nixon smoking a lacy with Mr. Dixon. He said,
And now, back to the show.
Chorus 2 is right off the heels of verse 2. And Joe, we got new lyrics here, different from chorus 1. Really, every time the punk rock girl part, what I'm calling the chorus, comes around, there are different lyrics.
did not know. Punk rock girl, give me a chance. Let's go slam dance. We'll dress like Minnie Pearl. Just you and me, punk rock girl.
Punk rock girl, give me a chance. Punk rock girl, let's go slam dance. Well, dress like Minnie Pearl, just you and me, punk rock girl.
The Minnie Pearl line was Dave's. I wanted to get slam dancing in there because that's another aspect of punk that was interesting to us back then. And then
Was hee haw like a thing, like with you guys?
yeah, I knew who Minnie Pearl was.
Yeah.
But I would have never thought of that line. I had a dummy line in there, and I was like, "There's not enough words, Dave, that rhyme with girl, and we need another one. We need a different." He said, "How about we'll dress like Minnie Pearl?" He just right off the top of his head did that, and I was like, "Brilliant! That's the word."
Well, Minnie Pearl wasn't exactly known for her punk rock attire, though.
No, but anything could be punk.
I love it.
But it's not. It's the attitude, I think.
It is. And
one of the ideas.
I never had any popular songs, but these are like my first songs that I was writing on a 4-track. I just wanted to make my buddies in college laugh on a Friday night. Hey, listen to this, And so it's just I'm getting such a big kick out of this. The second gang backing vocal, the second punk rock girl. In my notes, I wrote, it's out of tune, it's out of time, but there's such a charm, and it's so killer that this got on radio and got on MTV. It's just beautiful.
Yeah, we never cared too much for pitch.
But again, that's the reason why this works. You get some crooner in a bar singing this, and they're singing it in tune and in time. It doesn't translate, man. No one sounds like the Milkmen.
Yep.
You're like, yeah, what else is there to say?
No comment.
No comment. I love that. We get one of two, what I'm calling bridges in this song. The English,
yeah, that's right.
The English call it a middle eight. There's great tension here, Joe, going back and forth between just that C and G chord. It's so effective. The accordion comes in here. It's panned off to the right, joins the party. And what else was getting on the radio or MTV with an accordion besides Weird Al and maybe the Traveling Wilburys? I mean, it just wasn't a rock instrument, really.
Yeah, I think it goes up a step for the key change.
Yeah,
or something to F to G, and I just kind of like the way that sounded.
We went to the Philly Pizza Company and ordered some hot tea. The waitress said, "Well, no, we only have it iced." So we jumped up on the table and shouted anarchy. And someone played a Beach Boys song on the jukebox. It was California Dreamin'. So we started screaming on such a winter's day.
How'd the accordion come about? Was it just kind of a joke, or you just said, "I want to play it," and he said, "Go learn it and come up with a part"?
I guess Brian Beatty, the producer, who thought, accordion would be good in here, because we weren't playing anything in there. We didn't have any other harmonic thing going on.
Right.
He thought accordion would be good. Can you have a shot at doing something on it?
Had you recorded an accordion on a record before? I don't recall.
No, I didn't even have such a thing. I had I had chord organ, which sounds closest, I guess, to accordion of what I have. It's one of those, air fueled things, and I've used that on demos. And I also had a little Casio electronic keyboard that maybe could approach an accordion sound, but not quite back then. But no.
Well, if you think that Minnie Pearl came out of left field, let's get into these bridge lyrics. We went to the Philly Pizza Company and ordered some hot tea. The waitress said, "Well, no, we only have it iced." So we jumped up on the table and shouted anarchy, and someone played a Beach Boys song on the jukebox. It was California Dreamin', so we started screaming on such a winter's day.
Yeah, that's more Philly stuff. The Philly Pizza Company was a real place we would go to for meetings and stuff because it was on South Street also. The whole deal with tea. Dave and I loved drinking hot tea. We would make a pot of tea and have our songwriting sessions. And I've actually had the experience, not necessarily at the Philly Pizza Company, but other places, restaurants where you'd order tea and they would say, oh, you mean hot tea? We don't have hot tea here, but you know, we have this Lipton stuff we call iced tea that's not really anything approaching.
Have you guys been to England, the UK by this point in your career? Because it's very English to want to have afternoon tea.
No.
But
I guess we were, no, we hadn't been there, but we would go there a couple years after this album was released.
Okay. Well, did you really jump on a table and shout anarchy, or is that just in the story?
That's just made up for the story to get some action in there. And also to bring another aspect of, you know, you see anarchy punks and anarchies is no more rules.
And excuse me if I'm wrong, but I believe Mamas and Papas recorded California Dreamin', not the Beach Boys.
And we knew that.
Okay.
It might be we were going way too far into developing this character, but we figured, okay, so in our tour for, I think it was our tour for Eat Your Paisley, so that would be around the time that we were writing the song. The Beach Boys did have a semi-hit. I mean, it was in the top 100. Maybe scraped the top 40. I don't remember, but it was on the radio enough in our van. The thing about our tours was that we would all make cassette comps to play, and then we'd get so sick of them that we'd revert to the radio, and the radio was like whatever.
Yeah.
We'd be listening to top 40 radio out of just boredom, and we kept hearing this horrible version of the Mamas and the Papas, California Dreamin' by the Beach Boys. The thought was, what if some young kid thought this was a Beach Boys song? Let's write that and then let's have a deal. I thought it would be funny. It backfired on us.
I don't know if it might have backfired then, but it's aged well. I think it's hilarious. On the last line here, on such a winter's day, we get the progression of the bridge. It continues for 4 more bars. On bar 3, in my notes, I wrote, there's a bad, but in parentheses, perfect accordion note there.
Screaming on such a winter's day. She took me to...
It's technically a wrong note in the scale, but it was left in. And again, was that just because it sounded natural? It was real?
Yeah. What happened, because I couldn't play the accordion properly. Brian, I guess to appease my ego, he tracked all the left hand oompa stuff that I couldn't do. And let me track the melody line right hand, because I could only do one thing at a time. So I got to play that. I played the bad note, and I'm sure Brian, knowing Brian, said this is too, you got to keep it that way.
That's so great. You know, I had asked you a bit ago, Joe, about Brian's involvement, and it really sounds like he was just a fifth member at that point. Like he got what you were going for.
I considered him that.
That's awesome. Well, verse 3.
She took me to her parents for a Sunday meal. Her father took one look at me and he began to squeal.
She took me to her parents for a Sunday meal. Her father took one look at me and he began to squeal. And the accordion is either panned right and left or it's in stereo at this point. It's changed from the bridge. And I thought that was cool.
Yeah, well, that's the big test of a relationship, is going to their parents' house for a meal. And then you're on the spotlight is on you, you're in the hot seat.
Yeah.
And then the kid is taken for a he's like taken aback because he sees how wealthy they're living, and she's kind of slumming it, and he to be a punk, that's cool too. He likes that in a way.
Well, the chorus 3, again, we get different lyrics again, which makes what I'm calling the chorus, every time the punk rock girl refrain comes in, it's almost like a verse.
Yeah, well, yeah. The song is so short, you can't repeat anything to get the story.
Okay, so yeah, that would explain the different lyrics. And this chorus 3, again, there's a line in here that just kills me. I want to talk about it.
Real punk rock girl, it makes no sense. Your dad is the vice president, rich as the Duke of Earl. Yeah, you're for me, punk rock girl.
Punk rock girl, it makes no sense. Punk rock girl, your dad is the vice president.
Yeah, your dad is a vice president.
Oh, your dad is a vice
of a company.
Okay,
a vice president of a company. It really squeaks by as what's acceptable for a lyric in my opinion, but it rhymes kind of.
Yeah, your dad is a vice president, rich as the Duke of Earl. Yeah, you're for me, punk rock girl.
Yeah, again, what rhymes with girl. And that's that song, Duke of Earl. And we thought, well, any Duke would be pretty wealthy, we thought.
and was that okay with a struggling punk rocker? Hey, if her dad's well off, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, the kid is not a punk rocker. The kid singing the song, the girl is the punk rocker.
Gotcha.
And he may be converted by the end of this story.
The second punk rock girl gang backing vocal, it goes up like the first one each time. Other times the note goes down the second time for the backing vocal. It's like punk rock girl. It goes down the second time, but on this one it goes up.
I always meant it to go up when I wrote it, but the way it got recorded is the way it got recorded.
Okay.
But I always wanted that was one of the. To me, when I was writing the music, that was one of the hooks that I wanted to put in, is the way that it has the same punk rock girl. It's the same thing, but the harmonically it changes because the chords are different underneath.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, we get a guitar solo right off of chorus 3. This, of course, is an overdub. The solo's panned off left, and the accordion is here. And I'm assuming this is Brian playing this part because it's the upbeats with the band. You kind of talked about that a minute ago.
Exactly.
How many times do you recall tracking the solo? Because he had mentioned, Brian said he kind of wanted to get that feel of the demo. How did you get back to a compromise of what felt good?
I think it was just repetition, and then I may have even had to, I think he played back the demo so that I could hear it and like find it on the notes, because this was, you can imagine the demo was recorded. I wasn't constantly listening to it. And then I could get it. And then I got it. And
do you recall, again, you could cut tape. Was there, and more so than cut tape, you would punch in. Do you remember punching in, or was that one take?
I don't remember, but there was also another thing that he would do, and the next producer after that, where you would do 3, if you have enough tracks still on the 24 tracks, save that one, do another guitar solo, save that one, do another one, and then do a composite onto yet another one.
There you go.
You wouldn't have to cut tape.
Yeah.
Was any of that done? I don't recall. Punching in was more dangerous thing to do.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, I think we avoided it at all costs, because I do remember doing the punch in where it would ruin more than it would fix, and then you'd have to start all over again on a track.
And for those listening that aren't exactly certain of what we're talking about with punching in, but there's times when, it'd be like, here comes the part, and the engineer or producer would just bang, he would hit the record button, and you'd hope to get in. Sometimes you'd erase over something you recorded.
Yeah, the engineer would be too eager on the trigger, and then or the other thing is they wouldn't punch it out. That was the more often you'd keep the recording going longer than it should have.
Well, we get into the second bridge in the song, and the lyrics keep getting stranger.
We went to a shopping mall and left said all the shoppers and security guards trailed us to a record shop. We asked for Mojo Nixon, they said he don't work here. We said if you don't got Mojo Nixon, then your store could use some fixing.
We went to a shopping mall and laughed at all the shoppers, and security guards trailed us to a record shop. We asked for Mojo Nixon. They said he don't work here. We said, if you don't got Mojo Nixon, then your store could use some fixin'. And Mojo Nixon, the only connection I can make here is that he had released some records on Enigma.
Yeah, we met him because he was on Enigma. When we found out he was on Enigma, I was really glad. We found out when we got out there, but on the way on our first tour in '85, we just happened to hear I Met Jesus at McDonald's on a college radio station. So we're like, this Mojo Nixon's pretty cool.
I saw Jesus at McDonald's at midnight. Said he wasn't doing all right. Said he didn't feel so fine. Said he's about to lose his mind. I saw Mama humping Santa Claus. She said it was because of menopause. That's why she had...
And then to find out that he was on our label was even cooler, and they put us in touch with him and vice versa, and we got to be friends with him. And then on our, I think it was on our Eat Your Paisley tour, when we were out in San Diego, it was, we had a day off and it was Thanksgiving and nowhere to go, nothing to do. And he invited us over to his house, and he bought a bunch of Swanson turkey TV dinners and put them in the oven. We had a wonderful time. Got a bottle of Old Turkey, and we had a wonderful time. So I figured that's the reason he got we put him in the song, because we liked him.
That's cool. He was, of course, best known for his song Elvis Is Everywhere, and that song was everywhere in the late 80s. The accordion in Bridge 2 is now panned left and right. We get that there. And what did Mojo think? Mojo Nixon think of this shout out in the song? Was he stoked?
I think so, yes.
Yeah.
Then he put us in one of his videos when we were out there. We got to be in one of his videos. And
you can't get much different than Dead Milkmen, Mojo Nixon, and of course your other label mates, which were Poison. Their first record was on Enigma. How weird was that?
And Striper.
Yes,
another
Striper.
The Christian metal band.
Yeah, it's definitely some weird times.
Yeah, we also got to meet them. It was pretty cool being on Enigma.
That's awesome. Well, verse 4, right outside of Bridge 2.
We got into a car, away we started rolling. I said, how much you pay for this? Said nothing, man, it's stolen. Punk rock girl.
We got into her car, away we started rolling. I said, how much you pay for this? Said nothing, man, it's stolen. The accordion is playing those upbeats again, like the guitar solo section here in verse 4. And what's happened here lyrically? You're now in the car and you're hanging with the punk rock girl.
Yep, it's like a full conversion, and he's breaking the law, and they ride off. I guess they ride off into the sunset and have a punk rock family, and that's
okay. Well, chorus 4, I love chorus 4 because again we get another lyric change. Every chorus changes.
Stolen punk rock girl, you look so wild. Let's have a child, we'll name her Minnie Pearl. Just you and me, eat fudge, banana, swirl. Just you and me, we'll travel around the world. Just you and me, punk rock girl.
Punk rock girl, you look so wild. Punk rock girl, let's have a child. We'll name her Minnie Pearl. Just you and me. Eat fudge, banana, swirl. Just you and me. We'll travel around the world. Just you and me. Punk rock girl.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess I don't know why they knew they were going to have a girl, but probably because it rhymes.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what more can you say? We'll travel around the world. We'll have a happy fairy tale life together.
Okay. Well, on the line, a couple things happen here in chorus 4. On you and me on the 4th line, there's a unison vocal that doubles you and me, kind of panned off right. And then there's a killer turnaround on the eat fudge banana swirl. Instead of going back to punk rock girl, you go to that line. It really changes things up.
That's to indicate where something's different. We're probably winding the song up here we go, a big ending.
Yeah,
it's a typical songwriting deal. So.
I guess so. It's neat though. I like the wind up that happens. Also on the You and Me line, the 6th line I'm calling it, we get another unison vocal doubling, and then we'll travel around the world. It's probably your snottiest delivered line in the song. You just sound like you're and
we're gonna cause mayhem.
And I did the math in that video. We were all way younger then, but man, you look like a baby, and I love in the video when you sing that line. It's just spit and vinegar. It's awesome. You and Me on the very last, just You and Me before the song ends. We get that unison vocal again, and harmony vocals panned off to the right, and the band all pretty much ends together, and that's the song, man. It was really cool going through this one.
Cool, yeah.
What is it like, before we wrap up here? First of all, you said you were playing this with your previous act. What kind of reaction were you getting, and why did you think maybe this would work for Beelzebubba?
Yeah, well, I wouldn't call it a previous act. It was just our side thing.
Your side,
that Dave and I did.
Okay.
Because, well, Dave liked to sing, but we wouldn't really sing too much, and he wouldn't want to do a lead in the. Dave had a really silly side that was a subtler. We both liked the subtler music as well, and it just wouldn't work in the Dead Milkmen. So we did this thing called Ornamental Wigwam. I didn't even consider this Dead Milkmen material when it was written. It was really just for Dave and I to do another song to be performed, and that's why it's so Philly centric to begin with. It's mentioning actual places in Philly. To bring it to the band, it was really just because somebody suggested that it could work, and we thought maybe. I usually had a song that I want for me to sing on each album, and I think I had a song called the Guitar Song already for that, but then we brought this song and asked them if they would want to do this in addition or instead of the Guitar Song, and the guys said they were willing to work on it as a song for me to sing.
And now you were getting these reports from your tour manager to the manager, hey, MTV's playing it. Your friends are calling you, telling you they're hearing it on the radio. You get over that initial shock. The Milkmen go on. Life goes on after this thing that happens, this hit, this MTV thing. Did you ever think 35 years later you'd still be talking about this song intently as you are?
No. It's kind of taken a life on its own. It's gotten put on compilations.
Yeah.
It's got put in
it's so great.
A couple movies and stuff. But it didn't occur to me that this would even be the single, the video choice for the album.
Well, the song is so cool. Thanks for sitting in with me today to break this down. And before we go, is there anything you'd like to leave everyone listening with? What's going on with the Dead Milkmen?
This past year, we released an album called Quaker City Quiet Pills, a brand new album, and we just played a couple of shows for Labor Day weekend that were a lot of fun to do. We'll resume playing shows early next year. I don't think we have anything going on for the rest of the year, but that's what's up with us.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much for sitting in, Joe. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
He talks a lot of bullshit when he's hitting the rock, but we know Grandpa's not a racist. He just voted for one. They're coming for his Jesus. They're coming for his gun. They're coming for his Jesus. They're coming for his gun. They're coming for his Jesus. They're coming for his gun. Grandpa's not a racist. He just voted for one. Last night we
The song you're hearing is Grandpa's Not a Racist. He just voted for one from the Dead Milkmen's newest album, Quaker City Quiet Pills. I hope you all enjoyed that conversation with the great Joe Jack Talcum, but don't go anywhere. After a few quick words from our sponsors, we'll be right back with lots more Chris DeMakes a Podcast.
Calling all musicians. Are you ready to take your sound to the next level? Look no further than In-Ear's In-Ear Monitors, the ultimate audio solution for professionals and enthusiasts alike. A lot of people think that in-ear monitors are just for on-stage performances. Well, that's not the case at all. In fact, their custom-molded in-ears are also perfect for recording sessions, practice sessions, or simply immersing yourself in your favorite tracks. Your music will sound exactly as intended, with exceptional clarity, rich tones, and balanced frequencies across the entire audio spectrum. In-Ears even uses patented ADEL technology, which enhances the performance of their in-ear monitors in several ways. They protect your hearing. They allow you to hear your own voice and instruments in a natural way. They have an increased dynamic range, which allows you to hear a full spectrum of your music, and they have a comfortable fit that allows you to focus on performance without distractions. And let me tell you, myself and the rest of Less Than Jake absolutely love these in-ears, in-ear monitors. If you're ready to experience the difference with in-ears, you can head to inears.com. That's INEARZ.com and use the discount code CHRISD10 at checkout to get 10% off your order. In-ears, in-ear monitors, where exceptional sound meets personalized comfort.
As we near the end of the show, here's a band you might not know.
Welcome to this week's Band You Might Not Know. If you'd like your band to be considered for Chris DeMakes a Podcast, all you have to do is email your best song via MP3 only and a short bio to bandyoumightnotknow@gmail.com. This week's featured artist is Tess and the Details, a female-fronted punk rock band from San Francisco. They've been around for a little less than a year, but they've played a ton of shows and they're working super hard. Really cool. Their debut album, Runaway, is set to be released this November. Here's a snippet of their song, Canary.
The Wrap with Chris and Chris.
Chris, I was so excited for this one. When you think of punk rock classics, you might think of Blitzkrieg Bop or London Calling. I don't know. What are some other songs you think of as like punk rock classics?
Oh, geez. Anarchy in the UK, Pistols.
Sure. You know what, though? In my world, in my life, I think this is the one. I think Punk Rock Girl is the one. Now, there's some songs that came after Punk Rock Girl that I also put in that same esteem, but man, this song is so incredible, and I was so excited for this one, and I thought Joe was really funny.
He's hilarious.
I was just cracking up because it's just exactly the guy singing that song, if that makes sense. Like, his personality is exactly the same guy that's singing this song in 1987 or 88 or whatever.
He hasn't changed a day in 35 years, except maybe physical appearance. It's the same delivery. He's just kind of, he even said it. He never thought, even when he wrote it, it would be just another song in the repertoire. Haven't we heard that before here?
Yeah. That's what's beautiful about it, is that you can tell. And I like that you asked him, like, what was the vibe like when you were recording this? Was it tense? Was everyone having a laugh? Because it sounds like when you listen to any, like I told you before we recorded this, I love that Big Lizard in My Backyard album. And it just sounds like people having fun making music, having a laugh with your friends while you make these songs. And it just translates, and it's just as enjoyable to listen to as I'm sure it was for them to write and record.
Absolutely. But, if you look at everything that's here, the imperfections that I spoke about in the recording, there's tons of people, myself included, that did home recordings, silly songs, and they never gained traction. It's a dime a dozen. You can go on YouTube and hear these parodies, but every once in a while, you'll get this lightning in a bottle. You get a band like the Milkmen. Nobody sounds like them. You can't go out and try to do this song in a cover band bar setting. It won't work. You have to be this band. And if you listen to them to this day, go pull up a video of them playing. It still sounds the same. They've never tried to correct those imperfections.
I told you before we started recording this too, that one of the bands I play in, at one point we said, well, let's cover Punk Rock Girl. That'll be a fun song to play at a show. And I think we realized within 2 minutes of trying to play it, like, oh, we can't cover this song. This is incredibly hard to cover. Like, how do you pull this off? Like, the imperfections in it are what make it what it is. And how do you replicate that? It's very difficult.
Right, yeah, and Rodney Linderman, Rodney Anonymous, as he goes by, the vocals and keyboardist. There's a live video I watched last night with him. It's a newer video, and he's doing the Punk Rock Girl backing vocals and some other stuff. And it's just, again, it's out of time, it's out of pitch, and there's just something magical about it. There's a lot of bands, if you did that with, it's just not going to work.
You know, I really related to when he talked about doing the DIY tours where they weren't doing support tours. I know that I related to that. My band did that. I'm sure Less Than Jake did that when you were starting out. Before you were getting headlining tours, you were just doing your own tours. But they then were touring with Red Hot Chili Peppers, which is pretty cool too. And I'm sure just like you experienced too, and I did, you eventually do get those support tours. But I really like that when someone just goes for it, goes out on the road and does it themselves, and that's really their story.
And remember too, you know, when they were out with the Chili Peppers, that was during Mother's Milk, which was their, you know, the Peppers' biggest album up to that point. But it wasn't the superstars they became with Blood, Sugar, Sex, Magic. So they were still doing the DIY club scene. I had asked them about the First Unitarian Church. Have you ever played there, Chris?
Yes. Yep, I have.
Okay. And it's funny, they didn't play there in their heyday. Their first incarnation was when they reunited that they ended up playing there.
Yeah. There were things about this song that I never thought of. One of them being, so after he asks her if she has a bow, she said she did not know. I always interpreted that as maybe she was drunk and didn't know. Like, I don't know, you know. No, I never interpreted it as maybe I do now. Maybe I do have a bow now and it's you. I thought that was pretty cool. Never knew who Minnie Pearl was. I always assumed that was some punk rock person I didn't know. I did not know that was someone. Did you say it's someone from Hee Haw?
Yeah, there's an old lady on there, and her thing was she used to wear the tag on her hat, which I don't know if that's become a big thing with rappers and such in the younger generation. They'll keep the tag on the hat, and I've heard some of them referencing Minnie Pearl. So I think there's a little throwback there. Yeah, but if you go look at picture, she always has the tag hanging off that straw hat she wore or whatever.
It's so funny that I just assumed that was some punk rock related woman I did not know. And also Mojo Nixon, it's another one of those things where, oh, that's some like old school punk rock person who I didn't really know, who I guess he was kind of in a way. He was like a psychobilly sort of punk rock adjacent artist.
Well, Mojo Nixon was kind of like his Buster Poindexter. That was his alter ego. I can't recall his actual name, but yeah, he was kind of a novelty thing in the 80s. The Elvis is Everywhere song was everywhere. That was a really big hit, but I had to dig a little further, and I said to Joe, is it because of the Enigma Records connection? Because I know that Mojo Nixon was on Enigma, and he of course corroborated that, because I was thinking, why would you be that song was big, but it wasn't like he was an A-list celebrity, you know. Neither was Minnie Pearl, I guess.
Right, and it's cool they became friends. Man, I'd love to see that Enigma Records Dead Milkmen Striper tour. I know you'd like that one.
Hey, they could play at the First Unitarian Church. It would work out for both camps.
Also, I thought it was really funny, and it's just fitting that Joe said that him and Dave really enjoyed drinking hot tea and writing songs. Why wouldn't they?
Well, and I didn't want to get into it in press. It's one of two things. I was going to ask him, but I decided to lay off because we didn't really get into too much of this. But this is the kind of band, okay? And we all know what Ween was doing. But either these guys were completely sober drinking tea, or they were tripping acid writing these songs. One of the two, and I think they were sober.
I think so,
relatively sober.
I kind of got that impression as well. And that, to be honest, that makes me like it even more.
Absolutely.
To be stone cold sober and just making each other laugh, and then in turn making the whole world a little bit better with your music, right? I think that is so awesome. And Chris, I also like making the world a little bit better with our podcasts. Well, at least trying to. And we try to do that not only with Chris DeMakes a Podcast, but also with the After Party Podcast, which is our weekly bonus episode that we release to people who are members of our supporting cast, which you can join at chrisdemakes.com. It's just like Patreon. It's basically the same exact thing if you go to chrisdemakes.com.
What a segue. And speaking of segues, I recently bought Chris one. You'll see him at the When We Are Young Festival out in Vegas, cruising around on it, passing out information about the podcast. So I'm going to get you a segue for all those great segues. Yeah, go to chrisdemakes.com and support us through our supporting cast, which is our Patreon. For a price of a cup of coffee or a little bit more, you can get bonus episodes each week and hear Chris and I rattle about other stuff besides just the main podcast. And please give us a follow on Instagram. I'm at Less Than Chris D. Chris is at Chris Fafalius, and I'm still doing those custom songs. Hit me up, chrisdemakes@gmail.com. If you'd like a song for you, that special someone, holidays are right around the corner. I know it's 2 months away, but that's pretty much right around the corner. ChrisDeMakes@gmail.com. And want to thank this week's guest, Joe Jack Talcum, for sitting in with us. We'll see you next week.
One Hit Thunder is a podcast where we celebrate and occasionally have a laugh about those bands and artists that had one song that most people remember. Although many musicians may reject the term one-hit wonder, we beg to differ with their aversion to it, because wouldn't we all love to have a beloved hit song? On One Hit Thunder, we're joined by interesting guests from the world of music and comedy to dive into one artist each week. Our back catalog runs deep, with episodes about everyone from Wild Cherry to Snow to Tag Team to Harvey Danger, and a new episode comes out every Wednesday. Subscribe to One Hit Thunder wherever you get your podcasts and join in on the fun. Do you like to laugh, geek out on music, and learn all about that band or artist who had that one song back in the day, but then seemed to fall off the face of the earth? If so, you need to subscribe to One Hit Thunder. Together with an array of interesting and hilarious guests, we do a weekly dive into one-hit wonders like Eiffel 65's Blue, Krayshawn's Gucci Gucci, EMF's Unbelievable, Delamitre's Roll to Me, Los Del Rio's Macarena, Musical Youth's Pass the Dutchie, and even Patrick Swayze's She's Like the Wind. So are you subscribed to One Hit Thunder or what? As Desiree would say, you gotta be. And as K7 would encourage, you gotta come, baby, come and join in on the fun of the One Hit Thunder podcast.
Come, baby, come, baby, baby, come, come. Come, baby, come, baby, baby, come.
Hey there, I am Johnny Christ from Avenged Sevenfold, and I've got a podcast called Drinks with Johnny you're going to want to check out. I sit down with a bunch of different people from all different walks of life, from professional wrestlers to actors, comedians, fighters, musicians, everything in between. I'm just looking to make some friends and have a good time doing it. So if that sounds like something you're into, go check out Drinks with Johnny, streaming everywhere now.